Got it.
And Mr. Chairman, we are live streaming.
All righty. We have a we have a quorum yet?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So if everyone is ready, the time is now approximately 3:07 or something. Let me see to make sure. 3:04. And they call the Community Development Committee to order. And as is customary, let's do a moments of silence, please. Amen.
Amen.
Okay. And public participation, I think I heard that we have a couple of people in public participation.
That is correct. We have two participants.
Two participants, okay. Here's the two. I would like them to give their name and their address. And I'm gonna give them at least 3 minutes each.
Okay.
All right.
First up, we have Carol Jackson.
Okay. Ms. Jackson, former Councilman Jackson.
Yes, thank you very much. Carol Jackson, 1461 Patterson Avenue, 29412.
Thank you.
I'm very happy to be able to be today as a board member of the Charleston Redevelopment Corporation. I'm even more happy that the CRC leaders, Chairman Polikoff and our Executive Director, CEO F.A. Johnson, are going to have the chance to make the presentation to you. So I just wanted to thank you in advance. I've obviously been following CRC long before I really had anything else to do with city government, and I have continued in my role as a board member, and I really do appreciate the fact that we have an opportunity now to demonstrate to the city council and to the entire city the accomplishments that I think you all launched CRC to begin in 2018, 2019, when we were forming the corporation through the auspices of the CRC, which was already a nonprofit within the city purview. And we added the Community Land Trust as sort of the biggest element of our work compared to other organizations who operate in our region and do all the good work that we are happy to be partnering for. So I really appreciate that you all are taking seriously our request to now come back for the funds that were, I would call them deferred in 2019 for rightful reasons. And I look forward to hearing the presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Councilman Jackson. Next we have
Marquette Mcdonald.
Okay, Mr. McDonald. You have 3 minutes.
And I don't see him signed on. He's signed up online, but I don't believe he's joining us by phone on the meeting. Okay.
Well, if he comes in, you can come back later, but we'll move right along. Okay, number B, item number B, with the approval for the minutes, May 19 minutes, please.
I make a motion to approve.
May I have a second, please?
Second.
Okay, it was moving second. All vote by favor by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposers nay, the ayes have it. And now we have no old business, so we go down to new business. So this is going to be under Ms. Johnson, the presentation of the 2022-23 Community Development Block Grant and Cdbg Home Investment Partnership Program and the Housing Opportunities for Person with AIDS Funding Recommendation. Ms. Johnson, on you.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. And thank you to you, Mayor, members of council, Councilmember Mitchell, for your leadership. Before I went into the specific allocations that were recommended by the CD Advisory Committee, and that again is a committee of appointed persons from across our community that meet once or twice a year when we receive funding from HUD to basically work with us, first hear presentations from the organizations after applications have been submitted, and then work with staff on developing recommendations. Wanted to share with you before I went into the specifics of the recommendations that we did receive from the Department of Housing and Urban Development, $843,628 in community development block grant funds. That is a 1.94% decrease from prior year. Dollar-wise, that's a little over $16,000 in decrease in our community development block grant fund allocation. Under our home investment partnership program dollars, we actually received an increase this year by 9.10%, which represented $49,678 additional dollars under the home program. And then finally, under our housing opportunities for persons with AIDS grant allocation, we received a 16.19% increase in that allocation. That equates to $148,518. So just so you're aware of the changes in the allocation or the dollars related to these various grants, pretty much this has been the trend over the last several years, where we've seen decreases in CDBG, and this is probably one of the smaller decreases. And then we're seeing, particularly in the HOTWA allocation, a larger increase in those particular dollars. And that is what we've seen over the last several years. Any questions, Chair Mitchell, before I continue?
No, if you don't have any questions from any of the committee members, we can move right on. Any questions from any committee members?
I have one question.
Councilman Gregory.
Gianna, over the last 5 years, and if you don't have it available, could you provide it to us? What is the total decrease in CDBG over the last 5 years?
So, Councilmember Gregory, we do have it in chart form, and I will send it to members of the CD committee as well as council so that you see everything in one sitting. But you will know there's literally only been 1 year where I think CDBG in particular was sustained. Otherwise, as I indicated, there has been a decrease. And CDBG tends to be the more flexible of the 3 grant programs that are provided from the Department of Housing and Urban Development, but I will send that to you under separate cover.
Okay, and I did have another question. Do the increases from the other programs kind of offset the decreases? Although I know they're for totally different purposes. Do they do any offsetting in any way?
It does to some degree. For instance, as I go through in particular the HOTWA program funding allocations, one of the things that we have done over the last several years is increase or set aside an amount to increase housing services or housing opportunities, in particular actual housing units available under the HOTWA program. And so you will note on your HOTWA sheet that this year we are providing a larger allocation of funds in that particular category. And what we're doing as a part of that is working with our service providers and local developers to see if we can increase housing for persons with HIV/AIDS to make up for lack of a better term, that housing that may not have been financed by CDBG dollars.
And finally, Mr. Chairman, and this is probably directed to the mayor. Mayor Tecklenburg, is there any effort on the part of the Mayor's Association to go before Congress and ask Congress to increase this? I know this has happened before. I think it happened under, and correct me if I'm wrong, Gianna, under Mayor Riley's watch, where he actually went and testified for Congress as they were cutting and gutting I think this same program, is there any movement through either the Municipal Association, the Conference of Mayors, to try to get Congress to increase the CDBG funding as opposed to decreasing it?
To answer the question, I'm not aware of any, and although I didn't go to the annual meeting last week in Reno, Nevada, I do, believe it or not, read Tom Cochran's emails about all types of subjects, and I have not seen any reference to that. We can inquire, and I think the National League of Cities could be asked as well.
Yeah, because I think if we're silent, it's going to continue to shrink. I think there needs to be a movement before Congress, or at least to the Secretary of HUD, to let them know that this is having an unbelievable effect on not just Charleston, but cities as a whole, because it's the only program that has the kind of flexibility built into it so that we can leverage it into even more dollars.
Well, that's right. I think I would ask Gianna, if you don't mind checking with HUD and find out, was the overall program reduced, or maybe their formula that they use impacted us specifically? I know I was surprised when the ARPA funding came out that Charleston received less than some cities with less population, but they also had factored in income levels and other factors into their equation for distribution, and that might be the case here as well. Do you know, Gianna?
Yes, sir. So oftentimes when the demographics of a community changes, it changes what you're allocated as part of the formula grant. I can certainly inquire of HUD further relative to a more in-depth and more comprehensive response. But Mayor, you're correct. Typically, when they see a change in demographics, which we are seeing in the city of Charleston, we see less money in particular areas than we do.
Yeah, it's just worth asking so we know what we're dealing with. Thank you.
Excuse me, but I think someone have their phone, if they put their phone in mute when they're not speaking, because I get a lot of feedback.
And Mr. Chairman, Councilmember Saccharin has his hand up too.
Okay, Councilman Saccharin?
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick question for could you possibly just review the process of how we come up with the allocations and decisions? I know there's a committee, right?
Correct.
Yes, sir. It starts literally with us releasing applications in October, November of the prior year. So organizations can submit applications to the city of Charleston. Those are received in January of every year. And a part of those applications, not part of them, but the applications have to be responsive to our 5-year consolidated plan. So once we receive those applications, the applications themselves are reviewed by my team internal to the department. We oftentimes will pull in other folks from the advisory committee and other departments to basically review and score those applications, make sure they make sense. Once that is done, those applicants have an opportunity to present to the CD advisory committee. That is typically done the last Monday in January. After that is done, the CD advisory committee meets and reviews the summaries, the evaluations of those applicants, the requests that they're making. Oftentimes their goal is always to attempt to award every application, if it's compliant with the consolidated plan, some level of funding. Ultimately, we have to have a balanced budget when we submit it to you all as well. And so that is literally the process. Once that is done, then we bring it to you all for review. And then naturally, the final goes to Ways and Means and full council.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And there is a requirement for advertising to the public when these applications are due, et cetera, et cetera. Am I correct?
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. And traditionally, we had advertised in both the Post and the Chronicle. Of course, with the Chronicle out, a lot of the notices then go to our neighborhood councils, certainly to the Post and Courier, to other smaller newspapers across our community, other partners, just to make sure we get the word out as much as possible.
All right, any other questions? If not, we can move on, Ms. Johnson.
Okay, so with that, Councilmember Mitchell, I am not going to cover line item by line item, but you all see it before you. I would simply say to you, the Community Development Block Grant Program covers everything from program administration, property maintenance, our substantial rehabilitation programs, which go towards preserving affordable housing in our community, continuing to allocate funding towards property acquisition, our employer assisted housing, which, if you note, we put less money in that category, and that is simply because we have money from prior years remaining. And so we're trying to encourage more persons to buy, but naturally we need to increase our production in order to get more employees involved in that process. One of the things that Ms. Peters has been involved in is working with other developers and organizations across our community that may be building housing affordable to our employees in the city of Charleston, even if we don't have any active in our program, just so we increase the amount of for sale opportunities for our city employees. Andrea, can you scroll down on this one for me, please? I wanted to point out for the CD Committee of City Council, there are a few that are new to us that have come aboard that we're excited about. In particular, we have the Tri-County Cradle to Career collaboration that requested funding from us. Naturally, as in most cases, the folks that ask for money from us ask for more than we award. But we do look at the other funding sources that they have as part of their coffers, and we make a recommendation based on that. So we are pleased to say we are recommending $10,000 for that this year. The other new item or new organization to the request that we've seen in the past is number 14, which is the Family Promise of Greater Charleston, working with faith-based organizations and other organizations across our community to work with those families that are homeless and are unstably housed, to bring a mentorship component to them to ensure greater housing stability for those particular families. So we're pleased to say that we are allocating funding toward that as well. I would also mention to the CD committee, in addition to the $843,628, we included $200,000 as program income in this particular budget, simply because, and that is an estimate, but we traditionally see income coming back from various programs under, or various activities under the Cdbg program that helps us generate additional dollars. Traditionally, those dollars are going towards our preservation program, but we've also used those in instances relative to the acquisition of land when we have that opportunity presented to us. Any other specific questions regarding Cdbg?
No questions.
I move for approval.
Second.
Okay, it was moved and second that we approve the information coming from the Community Development Block Grant portion. All in favor, vote by saying aye.
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 Opposes nay. The ayes have it, so that'll be moved on. That's approved. So we'll go on to the next, which is going to be the home funds, home investment partnership.
So your next, the next document that is before you, or the next budget that is before you, is based on our home investment partnership program dollars. That budget is $545,666. And in fact, that should be $595. 595, 344. So nonetheless, I would remind our committee here today that we allocate 15% of these dollars towards what we call our community housing development organizations. We have approximately 4 of those in our community right now. 3 are a little bit more active than what we've seen in the past, which we're pleased about. But primarily the funding here is going towards admin, preservation of housing, and the creation of more housing by our nonprofit organizations. In addition to that, I would also point out that we have an allocation of $144,710 going towards tenant-based rental assistance. The idea there is to have funding available to directly assist those families and individuals transitioning from homelessness. We are working now with the Department of HUD. They have provided a consultant to us, providing technical assistance such that we look at revising our 10-year plan to end homelessness. And part of doing that is setting aside a set amount of dollars to support additional units for persons transitioning out of homelessness. And so, if you will, that is the one newer item that is a part of our home budget this year. Otherwise, as indicated, we have program admin, our substantial rehabilitation program, our small rental rehab program, 36 Cooper Street, which is a property that we have committed to via your approval at council to the Palmetto CAP organization. They are in the process even now of developing plans for that. We have what we call our Choto Operations Fund, whereby we are funding monies towards the pastors organization who helps other faith organizations, and the Charleston Redevelopment Corporation. Those are 2 of our community housing development organizations that we plan to fund with our 2022-2023 budget. I'm available to answer any questions on that one.
Do I have any questions from any one of the committee members or the mayor?
Gianna, do you have specific properties that the pastors organization is going to be rehabbing?
So on this, and I don't have it on this sheet, Mayor, they are looking at 2 homes west of the Ashley that they are looking at rehabilitating in order to make available for rental purposes. Those houses are in the Maryville side of the Ashleyville-Maryville community.
Right, gotcha. Okay. But they've got a specified property or 2 properties that the funds will be going to, correct?
Yes, sir, that is correct. That is named in their application.
Great, thank you.
You are welcome.
Any other questions?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, just one question.
Yes.
Gianna, is this the first time that we've used home funds for tenant-based rental assistance?
It is. We have traditionally stayed away from that, and it's really been, whether our administration wants to support that. Under our HOTWA program, it is one of the items that we support annually through that program. But this is the first time under our home program. And so it was recommended that home, because of its focus on rental housing in particular, would be a good opportunity to help those persons, because of course we do under home 60% and below for rental. So that's why the focus on home for that particular population.
And isn't there a restriction on the time frame that we can provide tenant-based assistance?
Yes, sir. So typically with home dollars, you have 2 years to commit and 4 years to disperse.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, any other questions? Everyone understand that? Okay,
Move for approval?
All second.
it was moving second. All in favor by saying aye for the home.
Aye.
Ayes have it. We move right on.
Thank you all.
Now we on to the last sheet, which is the Hopper.
Yes, sir. So as indicated, we saw the larger increase in our HOTWA funding. $1,065,785. We have two primary providers or organizations that provide housing and related services to persons or households where the head of household has HIV/AIDS. And so we are funding those organizations at the amount requested. In addition to that, we have allocated $362,811 to help facilitate additional housing for this population of families or individuals. And then we have an allocation of as well that goes towards paying administrative costs for the program, for staff, et cetera, et cetera. And so the budget here balanced it as well at $65,785 for our Hotwood program.
Any questions? If there's no question, may I get a motion?
Move for approval.
Okay.
Okay, it's moving second. All vote by saying aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. We'll move right along to
Thank you.
under new business. We also number 2. I think the article, amend Article 3, site regulation, part 2. Excuse me? Oh. Under new business, item number 2. This is the amended Article 3, site regulation, part 2, the Old City High District and View Protection, Chapter 54. Who's going to be explaining that?
Mr. Chairman, Christopher Morgan here, and I'm going to go over some of this, and our Director Robert Summerfield is online, also may have some other comments, as well as Philip Overcash from our department. But basically, this is to brief the CD committee about the fact that we are going to adjust some of the requirements for our medical district heights. This is the height setup that we created for the medical district area of Charleston a number of years ago because of the situation where in a medical building, you need greater floor to ceiling heights than you do in, say, an apartment building or in an office building or something like that. And they were getting ready at that time to build the first Ashley River Tower. They've now built 2 of those medically, MUSC has, and Roper was doing some expansions, things like that. So it was helpful to all those entities, the VA as well. And as we review those heights, we've felt like we need to make sure that they are in place to help encourage the huge amount of employment that is the medical district. And I'm going to pull up some maps here if it's okay. I'm going to try to screen share here. Let's see, here we go. Are y'all seeing a full screen map now of Old City Height districts?
Yep.
Yep. Okay.
Got it.
Yes.
So this is the areas that these heights apply to, which is essentially the medical district, which is here, MUSC, VA, Roper, some of the associated parcels across Calhoun Street, and then the area around West Edge, which is of course MUSC and mostly city and MUSC property. So that's where all these height districts applied. They remained by feet as opposed to stories. When we adjusted the rest of the city to be by stories, we kept these by feet because these were such specialized districts. And what the goal of these amendments is to make sure that as long as entity is using these height districts for medical use or mixed use, in a mixed use zone area, that it is appropriate to keep the heights as shown. But if somebody were going to use it just for, say, an apartment building or just for, say, a standardized office building, something like that, that they would not be used, they would be limited to 5 stories. And again, that 5-story limitation would not apply to properties that are zoned MU. And I have an image here. Let's see, let me go to the next one. These are properties that are zoned MU up here in the West Edge area. So that 5-story limitation would not apply up there. And it would not apply if a building has those medical uses in it. But this is just kind of tightening up on these medical district heights so that we're making sure that they are really just benefiting those kind of medical uses that are important to this district. And I don't know if Robert had anything else he wanted to add, or Philip, but we'd be happy to answer questions as well.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, for the record, Robert Summerfield. So I just wanted to kind of be more direct. This is really a follow-up from the adoption of the comp plan. As a part of those discussions, as we applied the campus designation in this area, we wanted to be very clear that the original intent of the Heights District change that was done was to incentivize those institutional, those campus type uses in this area of town. And so at its heart, it's really a cleanup item to make clear intent based on the original drafting of those Heights districts, as well as the new kind of definition of a campus future land use as identified in the city's comprehensive plan.
All right, thank you very much. Councilman Gregg, you have a question? I know you do.
Yeah, I do, because most of this is in my district. Can you point to where the Gadsden Green community is on this map?
Yes, sir. There, if you can see my cursor, you see my cursor circulate?
Yes.
That's
Okay.
where Gadsden Green is up in here.
And right now, that area height is how much? 5 stories potentially?
I would need to check that. I don't, it's not as high as these other areas. It may be more in the, most of the west side is the 2.5 story district. So Gadsden Green may be more 2.5.
Well, I know that there was extensive discussion of the special commission with regard to attempting to do some zoning changes in that area, just in case there's some contemplation with regard to partnering with the housing authority to expand the whole Gadsden Green community. But under its current zoning, it would be hard to do. But I know that there was a lengthy discussion with regard to zoning. And Gianna, you were maybe privy to what I'm talking about.
And Mr. Chairman, if I might, Councilman, you are correct. We are working with the Housing Authority right now. It's one of the efforts that the Civic Design Center is underway with, as well as members of Christopher's team in the planning division, to take a look at what does the redevelopment of the Gadsden Green housing areas, what does that look like? And what would be any necessary zone changes to help accommodate that, so that you can kind of bridge the gap of addressing the needs in that area, while also having some sensitivity to the context in those other adjoining neighborhoods. So that is definitely on our plate, and we have a team that's working with the Housing Authority on that.
Okay, thank you. I thought that you were. I just wanted to make sure. Because we had some discussions on it.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Are they talking about, with the housing authority, in the city, are they talking about doing a density, higher density, that it can go higher if they may? Is that's one of the
Essentially, yes, sir.
Okay.
In these areas like Gadsden Green and in Meeting Street Manor.
Yeah, I remember meetings. Yeah.
All the real estate's in the sky.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. All righty. Any other questions? If they don't have any other questions, may I have a motion, please?
So move.
I'll second.
I'll second it.
Okay, if it's moving second, all vote by saying aye.
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 Opposes nay, the ayes have it. So we'll move right along to the item number 3 on the new business. That's the presentation from the Charleston Redevelopment Corporation. This request for financial support.
Councilmember Mitchell, we have Mr. Polikoff here to start that presentation off. Eli.
All righty.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Mayor and members of the committee. Thank you for your time. I'm Eli Polikoff. I'm chairman of the Charleston Redevelopment Corporation. You have information in your packets about this request and the background, so I'm just going to note some of the highlights. I think, as you all know, the CRC is a nonprofit. It was formed by the city, the Housing Authority, and Historic Charleston Foundation. and we focus on the development and preservation of affordable housing in the Charleston area and help secure funding for that goal. We have an all-volunteer board. Gianna Shaw Johnson is our vice chair. Diane Hamilton is our secretary. Cheryl Ferraro is our treasurer, and our CEO is F.A. Johnson. And I'm proud that we are an active organization. Since 2019, we've acquired the Sea Islands Apartments. We've acquired North Central Apartments downtown. We've constructed single-family homes in Rosemont and in Maryville, Ashleyville, and we financed over 100 owner-occupied townhomes that are currently under development in West Ashley, and there are other projects that are in development. And these efforts have helped secure, add, and preserve over 200 affordable housing units in the city. And the city has been a strong supporter and partner in all these efforts. In 2019, city staff recommended a $400,000 allocation to the CRC for administrative and operational costs. And these funds came from the 10 million LDC settlement. City Council allocated a third of that in 2019. So our request today is authorization to use the remaining 2/3, and our partner, Historic Charleston Foundation, supports this request. The CRC has a proven track record, and your continued support will help us continue to build on that track record. So we're happy to take any questions or provide any additional information, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions? Councilman Gregory, Councilman Waring, Councilman Sacrum, any questions?
I do.
Councilman Waring.
But I saw the mayor's hand before Mike.
Oh,
mayor's hand.
I didn't see his hand. Mr. Mayor?
I remember at the end of the Let It Be film where the Beatles were playing on the rooftop, the John Lennon asked at the end of the session, did we pass the audition? And I just looked at this one list here of the Sea Island Apartments, 48 units, North Central Apartments, 36 units, Homes of Hope under permitting, 75 units, Bermuda Point, 40 units, and the other single family addresses here. I would say that the CRC has passed the audition. They've been terrific. Thank y'all for your work. You're playing a major role in preserving and establishing affordable housing in our city. And I think we should continue to support them. I guess the only verification I would like to have, Gianna, that we still have authorization over those funds that are mentioned. And if that's the case, I'd be very supportive to continue this partnership. It's been very productive.
Councilman Waring?
I agree with the mayor. As a matter of fact, my question was one of authorization. The city owns a piece of property off of St. Philip Street. It used to be the old shed. I know Councilmember Mitchell, you remember it, where we used to park the dump trucks.
On Line Street?
You mean Bogart?
I'm sorry, off of Line Street.
Line Street.
Line Street, right.
Right there. Hypothetically, Ms. Shaw Johnson, if we were going to develop that, the city was going to develop that into affordable housing. Obviously, it may need some of this type money. I think properties that the city already owns, it's imperative that we keep properties, in particular on the peninsula, that we own. And if we can convert it to affordable housing, it certainly make sense. If this money, if all of it were in the CDC, the mayor touched bases on authorization, but if we wanted to do a city project, what type of red tape or financial flexibility would we lose from where it is now if it were with the CDC? If all of it was with the CDC. If we're going to do a project like the property off of Line Street that we already own, that I think is situated perfect for townhomes.
Sure, Councilmember Waring, the city still holds that funding in its coffers, but you all authorized through a grant agreement the administration and oversight of those funds by the CRC. So hence the request from our chair, from Chair Polyakoff, about the use of those dollars, because even as they ask for use of those dollars, they have to be transferred through the process, if you will. So those funds, we have funds available minus even the amount that the CRC is requesting this afternoon that can be allocated towards other housing opportunities in the city of Charleston. Although I would just say we have a number of properties right now that we're looking at as opportunities as well. And naturally, there is more need than there is money. It has been leveraged quite well. But yes, there is that money that the city holds, and then the CRC, as they facilitate projects, secure the approval as appropriate.
So if I understood the request, is this for the remaining balance to be shifted to the CDC?
So the request is to allow for use of a portion of that towards administrative and operational costs for the organization, not the balance. So we continue to hold the balance, but each time they facilitate a development deal, there is a process that it goes through.
Okay, I misheard. I thought the gentleman said a third had been transferred and he was asking for the remaining 2/3.
Yes, sir. So early on in the budget that we submitted to council, we had an allocation of $400,000 specifically for admin and operational costs. We gave them $133,000, and what they're doing is asking for the balance of that to support the organization itself.
I'm fine with that. I misheard his request. My mind went on the total, right, total amount we got from the. Right. I'm fine with it. Thank you for the explanation.
Sure.
Right. Any other questions?
Yeah.
Councilman Gregory?
Yes. Speaking of that Line Street project that Councilman Waring just referred to, Gianna, couldn't we use our leverage program income from Cdbg to try to attempt to leverage and do something with that building? Because it's a great opportunity.
So currently there is an RFP out for the redevelopment of that site. And Robert, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe our procurement office has already released it. Many years ago, we were working with the Housing Authority of the City of Charleston, looking at that site as an opportunity to develop senior housing. At the time, we were not able to finalize that deal. I know that currently that RFP is out and it calls for both affordable, I think at a 25% rate of the full build out, and some mixed use housing. And Christopher, I don't know if you or Robert, I don't know that I see Robert, could speak to that RFP that has already been released. I think it has been.
Mr. Chairman, let me piggyback, if it will, on Councilman Gregory's question. We own the land 100%. Why would we only have 25% affordable housing? Why not 100%? The most important, see, the difficult part about, the most difficult part about developing affordable housing on the peninsula is getting the site. We actually have the site. We've controlled it for years. We own it for years. Why would we let 75% go and we can have 100% affordable housing right there? Anyway, I guess that's the wider conversation we can have on council. But I said this before: a 2x4 in Columbia, a 2x6 in Columbia costs about the same in Charleston. The framing labor is about the same, not much more in Charleston. The problem is the land in Charleston, in particular on that peninsula. There's an exponential cost to it versus trying to find something in Columbia, even Greenville, to do that. So the limited parcels of land that we have, if we expose that to the private sector for market rate housing, That's just counterproductive. The private market is ahead of us now. Just ride around. Right, matter of fact, ride to your district, Councilman Mitchell. Just ride down Morrison Drive. Look all the units up in the sky that are unaffordable.
Yes, gone.
Anyway, that's not on the agenda. I support this request.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, Mayor, Councilmember
Yes.
Saccharin. Councilmember Saccharin has his hand up.
Oh, Councilman Saccharin, didn't see you.
Thank you, Chair. I'm obviously, I'm going to support this request, but in terms of the discussion around affordable housing, I mean, I've connected with Christopher and Ms. Johnson about a parcel that was downtown, because I know the school district is looking for space for affordable housing. I just think there's an opportunity, I guess, to Keith's point. I feel like sometimes as council members, either we don't ask the right question, we don't get the right answer, and I have to ask the right question to get the right answer. I specifically asked, can I get a list of all the properties that we own downtown and the peninsula? Because I think there's an opportunity with the school district to partner with them. And I think we were at this juncture several years ago and it never came to fruition. But they're out searching for property, searching for a project to help fund some of their teachers. I think we're hearing from our firefighters every council meeting about the need to create space where they work. We hear from our police officers daily. I just have to say, I feel like sometimes we're shooting ourselves in the foot because, to Councilman Waring's point, we have a parcel of land that's available. If we have the parcel of land that's available, let us do our jobs to bring people to the table to have the discussions. But it's just a bit frustrating for me because I feel like there's the appetite from the school district. We're hearing from our fire and we're hearing from police about the needs. I think it'd be an awesome project. And I know we can't carve it out specifically for public service workers, but if we build it for those folks and market it to that group, I think that would be a huge win for our city to add to that. And it'd be a workforce housing, of course, but I think we should add this to a future agenda because I would love to see the list of all the properties that we have in our disposal.
Councilmember Saccharin, I'm sorry. I was going to say, Councilmember Mitchell, I will ask Lee Bailey to prepare that and so that we can distribute it to city council members. There are not as many as we've had in the past. And I will just say when Don Cameron looked at Line Street, it's been many years ago, we had to retain a large portion of that building. So it was very costly even then to develop, and not impossible because we pay costs now, but that was one of the primary factors I knew that caused him to reconsider his participation in it. But I will get an email to Lee Bailey requesting a list of properties that the city owns on the peninsula. Thank you.
Well, yes, I'm gonna ask a quick question. Councilman Gregory, you have a question before I ask one?
Yes, I want to follow up on Councilman Saccharin's point about developing housing for teachers, firemen, et cetera. And correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Mayor Argiana, wasn't that a part of the proposal that the city was putting forth when we wanted to do Archer? I think number one. Number two, my question to Jason is, how much money is the school district willing to provide to the city so that we can develop the kind of housing that is needed by our teachers, not just our teachers, the whole complement of the educational system? I mean, how much money, we can talk about it, but for me, how much are they going to put on the table? Because they own land as well. I mean, if we want to really get into it, and I think it's worthy of discussion, Jason, and I'm glad that you brought it up, but I do think that we need to start talking in those terms, but not just talking about it. What is the school district going to put on the table to help with this? Because their budget is much bigger than ours.
So Council, I'm sorry.
That's all right, Gianna, go ahead. I just wanted to respond to Dudley, but go ahead.
Yes, I wanted to say, yes, sir. That was a part of the discussion related to Archer School. Myself and the real estate director at that time met with members of the school district's administration, talked through how we could encourage folks at every level of the school district's employment team to actually live there. We did ask if in doing that, there could be a reduced rate for the sale of the property. So we had an extensive conversation, thought we were heading in the right direction. It did not come to fruition. When Humanities Foundation purchased it, they purchased it at full price. And so I would just say we've had those conversations, very fruitful conversations. In fact, subsequent to that, myself and the mayor met with then Superintendent Postlethwaite to talk through how we could work through an employer assisted housing program and ways we can partner. So we remain open to that. It's certainly a little bit more challenging now because of the robust nature of our market and the demand for land. But yes, sir, we did evaluate much of that and had a number of conversations and meetings around that. Thank you.
Councilman Sacra?
Thank you, Chair. I'm certainly not diminishing our efforts in the past. I know it was 5 years ago. So it's a new superintendent, it's a new board. I know that, to Dudley's point, what's CCSD going to provide? I don't speak for them, but I do know that it's new leaders and it's worthy of a discussion and an engagement back with them, because I know that maybe in 2017 they weren't out searching for properties. I know they're actively searching. So I think it's more on their radar now than ever before. So I'm not trying to, dismiss previous efforts. I know that CCSD has to come to the table, Dudley. I get it. Thank you.
Let me quick question on the Line Street property. Is there a contract on that already?
No, sir. We just have we have an RFP out.
Okay.
Right now for proposals.
Okay, I know it came before the Ellie-Barr-Cannon-Barr Neighborhood Association, and somebody did a presentation because the previous person who wanted to purchase it, he had it along with the gentleman who was what he does. He was a
Artist?
yeah, yeah, and it fell through because he was in the Air Force and he left, and that's when he came back to to the city. We still had the property. So when I heard someone else had interest in it, and it came before the Neighborhood Association, Ellie-Barr-Cannon-Barr. So I just wanted to make sure of that. That's why I was mentioning that.
Yeah, no, nothing has been decided or anything on that. We have it out. We're requesting proposals to see what kind of response we would get based on the fact that there were some interested parties in looking to redevelop the site.
All right, that's what I wanted to make sure. So, okay, thank you.
And Mr. Chairman, the mayor had his hand up.
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, I just wanted to ask Jason, Councilmember Saccharin, and if you prefer somebody from the city do it, that's fine, but the school district has more property than we do. And
they certainly do.
when they go and build like this new early college school on the old Fraser campus, I mean, if they were thoughtful and designed it, they might be able to put some units on the back of the property, when they build a school, and have some teachers literally living on the site, and some creative things like that. I've requested, for the record, a meeting with Donald, and I don't know that it's been set up, but I'll add that to the list of things that we talk about. And they did try to work with us on Archer School, I guess, by way of discounting the property to us. But if I remember correctly, between the cost of the property and the renovation and all like that, the city just the council wasn't willing to move forward with that at the time. And probably with Humanities working all that out with tax credits and all, that it probably has worked out for the best anyway. But and then lastly, on the Line Street property, as someone just mentioned, there's been interest in that property for a long time. The neighborhood has certain goals or wishes they would like to see. The building is old enough to be considered historic, so you know, you wouldn't be able to tear it down. It's not like it's a vacant piece of land, so the cost per unit is probably pretty doggone high to renovate that building. I'm all for having some affordable housing on the site, and we'll see what kind of proposals we get back. In fact, we added that provision to the RFP because originally the folks that were interested in the neighborhood wanted to include things like community arts center, you know, of course, everybody wants to keep the city park there, and I do too. I think we all would. It's not large, but it's a nice neighborhood park that is right adjacent to the building. There's basically no parking that goes with it, and there's not a lot of density given the zoning and the height that you can't really go up, I don't think, because of the historic nature of the thing too. So it's got a lot of hair on it, to be honest with you, and bang for the buck, you know, we might be better finding a vacant piece of property somewhere. I just thought I'd share all that. Thanks.
Mr. Chairman, Councilmember Parker has her hand up, followed by Councilmember Waring.
Councilmember Parker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sorry, y'all, I was a little late, so cut me off if I know it's already been discussed, but I'm glad I got on when I did, because Line Street was one that, you know, just can someone explain the RFP? So have people have just shown interest, or are we listing these properties as, you know, we want your idea, you know, bring us your ideas, or bring us your ideas to buy it and redevelop it?
Mr. Chairman, would you like me to take that?
Please.
Yes, Robert, he's on the phone.
Okay. So yes, council member. So this is, we had, I believe it was 2 parties within the last year who came and made inquiries about the interest of the city to release that property for potential redevelopment. You know, we're required to, we can't just, you know, take an unsolicited kind of offer like that. We have to actually solicit for conveying any property away from the city. So based on those conversations, based on some conversations I think some folks had in the neighborhood and community, we worked to put together a request for proposal. Part of that request for proposal incentivizes for consideration in any proposals we do receive, affordable housing as well as affordable commercial space. So because that's one of the things we've been talking about a lot through the comp plan is, in addition to affordable housing, we need to be looking at opportunities for affordable startup commercial opportunities as well. So the RFP will allow for folks to have a pretty open-ended kind of presentation to the city at the close of that process on what they might look to do with the property as a redevelopment. I should say a historic adaptation of the property. To the mayor's point, it is a historic building. It would be a historic adaptation of the property.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. So the next, I mean, obviously the next steps, then the proposals just come to the committee.
Okay.
Yeah, so the RFP process will conclude, I believe it goes through the end of July. Once we've received those proposals, there'll be a selection committee that will evaluate the proposals. I apologize, I cannot recall if we've identified that selection committee yet or not. I think that's something we still have to finalize. The selection committee will review those through our standard procurement process to make sure that everything remains above board with that. And then if there's an offer that we want to move forward with, then we would bring it to council as a part of the selection process, the final selection process.
That would normally
Thank you.
That would normally go to the real estate.
Real estate, yes, sir.
All right. Is there any other questions?
Just to follow up on Councilmember Parker, I mean, even if we have that RFP out there, that doesn't necessarily mean we have to accept.
No, don't have to.
Okay.
I mean, we still can consider some of the discussions that we've had with respect to affordability in general.
Keeping it within the city, you mean?
Right. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
Any other questions? I don't hear anything.
Are we still on the motion to approve?
Yes. So
Yes.
moved, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Can I get a second? Can I get a second, please?
Second.
Second.
Okay, it was moving, second that we approved the, what's that, for the money from the Charleston Redevelopment Corporation. All in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay, the ayes have it. So we don't have anything else to bring before the committee before we adjourn?
No, sir, not at this time.
I just wish that we could follow up with Councilman Saccharin's, question in terms of just talking about affordable housing in general, and how perhaps at some point we may need to go further into the business so that we can continue to hold on to all of our assets, which sort of puts us in a better position over time in terms of what our, as a city, borrowing power may be based upon adding that asset. So again, I just think that we need to have sort of a general, again, we've had it before, again, discussion on affordable housing and just how much the city really wants to get involved in being a landlord, especially on a large housing development, especially as we look at places like Cooper River Apartments and Gadsden, Gadsden area community. I just think that we need to, at some point, just put a general discussion, Mr. Chairman, on the agenda, just to talk about affordable housing just in general, whether or not we can do links with all of our developments. And I think we've had this discussion before, and not necessarily just housing development, but some type of residential or housing linkage, as we've done with hotel development. Perhaps we can expand that in different areas of development to try to get around these usury laws that are restricting us.
Okay, that's something we can look at. Something that we can look at now. Probably I might have to ask, I have to put some more work on someone. I have to ask Ms. Johnson if she can kind of, guide that and try to look and see how we can bring this back to the community development with some other things that we can try to do that way. And
Yes, sir.
I mean,
Glad
we
to do it.
mentioned, we talked about this a long time ago, and we didn't have to even have city housing, but we didn't have staff to do city housing, and you have to change the whole community development office to be able to do something like that. I know this was mentioned years and years ago. And so maybe we have to look at some different things now and go and move in a different direction. But I'll ask Ms. Johnson if she can kind of pull some things together, and then we can come back and have it at another community development meeting and just kind of have a big discussion.
Okay.
Getting more affordable housing and see what else maybe we can do.
Absolutely. And the mayor's hand is up, Councilmember Mitchell.
Mayor?
Glad to do it.
I just wanted to comment one more time about the Charleston Redevelopment Corporation, CRC, and their role in all this. And I'm totally open, Councilmember Gregory, to always exploring new and further ways we can support affordable housing. But really, one of the reasons that the CRC was even formed was to give us the flexibility on a pretty short notice, like Eli reported some of the properties that they've acquired that were about to lose their affordability, and the CRC was able to just make an offer and go right in and purchase the property and maintain the affordability. And having the CRC in business to be able to do that is sometimes more flexible than what we can do as city government. So I just want to thank them again. They are part of the solution. And one way, Councilmember Gregory, maybe to grow our direct involvement is again through partners like the CRC, and they've already shown that they can step up to the plate and help make that happen.
Mayor, and I agree with you totally. And Gianna, I don't want to discount a fair Charleston, okay, piece that's a part of our comprehensive plan, which outlines some of what we're talking about in terms of how do we increase affordability. I can't remember the young lady who did it for us, but it's a very, very thorough piece. Natasha, it's a very thorough piece, okay, on what we're talking about right now. Mm-hmm. And so I'm not talking about reinventing the wheel, Gianna, okay? No, I'm talking about just pulling something, okay, that you had done some time ago, maybe 2 or 3 years ago. And so to go through some of the step-by-step recommendations there in terms of how we may be able to increase our affordable housing inventory.
Sure. Yes, sir. We would not have to recreate the wheel. Much of what you're asking, we've researched. In fact, most of those docs or the recommendations that are in the toolkit in the Housing for a Fair Charleston plan, we've completed, but there are others that we have not. And so we will be bringing back to council ways to, one, increase the availability of funds to support affordable housing, because most of you have heard state housing is making it more and more difficult, not of their own accord, but the legislators that dictate and have the authority over what they do are not of the full understanding of what it takes to develop and maintain affordable housing. So we're working now at various fronts, and we're going to bring that before you so you understand what staff is looking at, including looking at a 108 loan again as a possible source of funding. Talking to the mayor further about legislative actions that will ensure that we can maybe abate taxes so that we come up with more opportunities for affordable housing. So to your point, Councilmember Gregory, we are looking at strategies now, and we'll bring that back before you such that we are able to facilitate additional action and prepare the city for the future. Even as you think about the properties that we currently have ground leases on, 50 or 60 years, the city will own that property, continue to own the property and the improvements. So the question for us will be, how will we handle that? Will we then ask a CRC or a like organization to manage those units for us? But they will come back to the city on that land that we allowed as part of those developments, because those are ground leases. We did not sell that land. We did not give it away. So the James Lewis Jr. site, the low line site, all of those sites are facilitated under ground leases. So in another 50 or 60 years, I know several of us will not be on a Zoom at that time, but certainly we need to think about how the city will manage that inventory that will come back to it. Thank you.
You mentioned 108 loan guarantee. And for the new folks who really not clear on what that is, one example of how the city uses 108 loan guarantee was when we needed to rehab Francis Marion Hotel, okay? So that just gives you some sense of what kinds of things we can do under 108 loan guarantee, although we will be obligating, okay, future funding to try to take care of it. But there are things that we can do. And thanks for letting folks know, but 108 is a pretty good instrument to use.
Okay. Any other question? And a comment I would have made, even if we're going through this, we still have the CRC there to partner with us with anything we do. And even if we can't go that route, we still can go back with them and still have them a part of, all this equation and doing affordable housing and trying to hold on to some of much as affordable housing as we can, because they might go and leverage some things that we can't do at the time. So we'll have, with the discussion that we will have, we can have all that and put all that in place and bringing all that together. Okay. Any other questions from anyone?